Hello and welcome to another Parallax Quick Byte. Today we're going to have a look at the Raspberry Pi and how to connect it to the Propeller 2 Edge module to control the Edge module from a web page. So the idea is that the web page will be running on the Raspberry Pi and that will be able to control things that are connected to the P2 Edge module. So let's just take a look at the hardware that we've got set up. So Raspberry Pi module there. I'm using a Raspberry Pi 3, as you might be able to tell, but really any Raspberry Pi is good for the game. The connections are easy. We've just got power, Wi-Fi connectivity in this Raspberry Pi, so no need for a LAN cable. And then just the three color cables going out to create a serial connection over to the P2, green, yellow, and orange. And then the other connection to the P2 Edge module is just for this lovely string of RGB lights. So I'll just zoom in briefly and show you those connections close up. And here we go. So that's the Raspberry Pi. Well, that's the dog barking. Thank you, dog. That's the Raspberry Pi header. So you can see the pins and the colors as to which pins they're connected to. Green being ground in this case, and yellow and orange being the GPO, TX and RX pins, 14 and 15 on the Raspberry Pi. And then we've got this one, which is the other end. So this is where the same colors are going into the P2 Edge mini breakout board. So green, as you can see, to ground, orange to pin 24 on the P2 side, and yellow tucked at the back there going to pin 25. And then the last photo I've got just shows you the zoom in of the RGB LED connections. Blue is ground in this case, green is pin 16 for data in this case, and purple is 5 volts in this case. I do apologize that the colors are awfully close in shade. You could use any color you like, of course. But anyway, the point, as long as you've got the LED, RGB sensor, whatever you're using, connected in the right place, you're good to go. And in this demo, we're using pin 16 as the control pin for the RGBs. Now, what do we need to do to get this going? Well, you need to set up a Raspberry Pi. So if you're a Pi person, then this will all be very simple. If you're not, then it needs a little bit of patience and you just take your time and work through it. But basically we start with the Raspberry Pi. Oh, well, here is the Quick Byte page for another demo which shows you how to set up your Raspberry Pi and Propeller 2 to send email. Now, let's just go to where we want to be today. So, Iron Sheep GitHub. Stephen Morocco is the author, and he's created this software called the P2 RPi IoT Gateway. So just go to his main page here and scroll down, and it is a very well elaborated project, plenty of instructions, step-by-step guides, and you can just find out what to do here. So you might start here, unbox and set up a new Raspberry Pi. Even if you already have a Pi, you might just want to breeze over that to make sure you've not missed any crucial steps. For example, making sure you've got your console serial disabled, which will be mentioned down here somewhere because it's crucial. Yeah, make sure you've got that one covered, especially if you're using an existing Raspberry Pi. Just go into interface options, choose serial ports, and the two questions will come up: turn off or disable console over serial. Yes, disable it. And then the second question: keep serial port enabled. Yes, keep it enabled. We do need it. And then it'll ask you to reboot. So yeah, even if you've got an existing Pi, do make sure you cover that one. And then we just go back to the menu, scroll back down again, and yep. So you unbox and set up the new Pi. Done that. Tick. Then you go to install your gateway project. So yep, do that. Very good. On this one, if you're a Pi expert, then it won't be an issue. But if you do get stuck and you're not used to Pi, it's probably good advice to just read through the rest of the tutorial because it might answer things for you. One one thing that might come up if you're, especially if you're using a newly configured Pi, that when you run this initial test command, you might get some red error message coming up to do with serial, and the answer to it is just a bit further down the page. If you just scroll down here and dev serial 0, if you get errors related to that, then doing what it tells you here is probably going to solve it. Yeah. So we just go back to, so we've got our setup new, we've installed the gateway, and then we configure a web server because we need a web server for this project. We're going to have a web page that we can log into and control stuff from. So yeah, do that, configure your web server, and then once you've completed all that Pi installation stuff, then you can get into the demos. So demos, and there's a whole load of demos. We're going to use this control LED string for today, so just click on there. I'll include the Propeller archive of the code as a download from the Quick Bytes page, so that will probably be simpler for you to download it from there if you're using a Windows machine, because you may not have cloned this whole repository if you're on Windows. And so, yeah, I'll include the archive, because this file in itself is not all you need. You need a whole bunch of other files that you probably don't want to have to download individually. So, top tip, if you did want to download them from here, perhaps to get the latest version, then just go to the root of this GitHub, and you'll see the green code button there. You can click on there and download zip. And once it's downloaded, you'll find within the zip all of these files, but you especially would want to look for your P2 source files at that stage. Open that folder and you'll find all of the lovely P2 source files. And this demo, just to point it out, is this one here. So we're going to be running the demo P2 gateway web control.spin2. So that's the file that we're going to open in a moment to run on the P2. Right, so I'll just go back to where I was, which I may not necessarily remember where I was, but anyway. I think I was in here. Yeah, control LED string. Yeah, so once you've got the Raspberry Pi installed and you've installed the web pages and you've followed all the steps, you should be able to connect to the Raspberry Pi, your Raspberry Pi, and find this page come up. And so here's one I prepared earlier. This is my Raspberry Pi view of the same, so it does work. Once you've got that working, then you need to do essentially two things to execute the system. You need to firstly make sure that your gateway is running. So that's back to this install gateway project steps. There's a command. Oh, incidentally, in case I hadn't mentioned it, all of the pinouts which I showed you earlier are also listed as part of the instructions. So although I'm jumping backwards and forwards slightly on screen, and I do apologize, I'm really just going between the same page that I showed you. So you just need, there's a lot of content here, but you just need to go through it step by step, and you'll be an expert by the end of it. So yeah, when you get to this initial test thing, and you've installed all that other stuff, then it'll prompt you to run this, and if you don't have errors, then it'll kind of talk you through setting up an automatic daemon so that the system will run this service by itself. But if the service is not running, then nothing's happening. So you can always manually run the service using this command, and actually that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to copy paste that for later, or just copy it. There we go. So I've got that command ready to go. I'm running this now instead of having it automatically running, just so I can show you what happens, because this also gives some debugging information coming out. Once you're happy that everything's working, obviously you would consider following on through the instructions and installing this service, so you didn't have to do this. Right, so I've copied the command that we need to use, and I've downloaded the code, and in theory my Raspberry Pi is now running the gateway. So I will go to the web page, and it's also the Raspberry Pi is not only running the gateway, it's also running this web page that I can use to talk through the gateway. This demo web page is just controlling an LED string. You could use, once you've got this gateway installed, you can use it to not only control things on your device, but also read back sensor values or read back data from your device. And obviously that will be in a future demo if people ask for it, or you might be able to just figure out on your own. There's lots of information in this website, so and there may already be a demo, covering two-way communication anyway. Right, so let's just have this web page up. So this is the Raspberry Pi web page. I'm going to pull up the Pi terminal, SSH terminal, and I'm just going to type in the command that I just copied off that web page and hit enter just to run that command. So here we can see now the gateway is running. I can't see any red messages, so that's a good thing. There's no errors that I need to take care of. And so, yeah, so we're good to go. Gateway's up and running, and yeah, we're good to go. So what I will now do is switch over to the Propeller tool. So Raspberry Pi is all done. What we can now do is open up the Propeller tool, and we can use this to program our P2 chip, obviously. Now, I've downloaded this demo P2 Gateway Web Control, which I mentioned just a moment ago. I downloaded the whole folder. So on the left-hand side here, you can see all the files that were in that folder. I've just opened up this file because this is the demo that we want to use. You'll see there's some other demos in here, emailing and all sorts of things, but this is the one we want to use. So as usual, when you open a Propeller 2, if you're not familiar with them, just have a look at the constant area, the constants or the configuration, however you like to remember them, and just look at the settings and see if there's anything you might want to adjust for your environment. So here there's timing. Well, we don't need to touch anything there. That's the speed the thing runs at. We'll leave that alone. Fixed I/O pins. Well, they're fixed, so we'll leave those alone. Raspberry Pi gateway pins. Might want to change those. Now, actually, I don't want to change them for this demo because I'm just using the same pins that the author has used in the GitHub site, so I'm not going to change anything. But if you were using different pins on your project, you could. There's 64 pins on the P2 module. You could choose to use any of them that you liked. Well, almost any, not the top 8, of course, but or the last 8, but you could use any of the others. So there you go. Baud rate, again, I'll leave that alone. The author has decided that 624K is the optimal number, so let's trust him on that and leave that as is. And then below there, we've got the LED string I/O pin settings. So that is currently set to pin 16. I have also copied that and plugged my LEDs into pin 16. So again, we'll leave that alone. So in the end, I haven't changed anything here, but at least I'm aware of what the options are and what I could change. And then as we scroll through the code, it's the main routine is here with all the fun and games in it. You can read through it and try to understand it and use it to add your own sort of sensors and whatnot. This is obviously controlling LEDs, but you really could, once you understand how the gateway is working and how the communication protocol is working, you could do whatever you like. So that's the code. Haven't changed it from stock, so we're good to go. I will just press F10 to load it up to my P2 Edge module. Perhaps we'll just switch to camera view before I do that so we can see it programming. Oh, and let's pull up the Pi view so we can see anything happening there as well. So the black window is the Raspberry Pi's debug terminal. So I'll just upload the P2. We should see the Propeller tool flashing over there. And yep, programming has worked. And on the debug terminal, obviously we've seen a whole lot of chatter going through. So that's good. That's all working. So with that all connected, in theory, we can now control it from our web page. So why don't we choose a color? Let's go with, I don't know, what should we have? Blue to match the table. and the other color could be, I don't know, yellowy-ish, mustardy. There we go. And let's have them sort of chasing, I guess. And the delay can stay as 10. So we just hit submit, and there's lots of messages scrolling through the debug terminal. And if I just get rid of the browser, because we don't need to see that, and seemingly I've nudged the camera over, so I'll just nudge that back. There we go. There we go. So now we can see it color chasing between the sort of blue and yellowish. I think that's all. You can clearly see that we can now control this Propeller 2 Edge module via the Raspberry Pi's web page. Yeah, so I hope that gets you started. Hopefully that just shows you that the possibility exists. And any questions, please ask at our forums.parallax.com, and we will always try to help. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.